Hey everybody, this is Dan,
And this is Ron.
and this is a nominee questionable movies, episode 90 something.
Yeah, 90, maybe 94. I don't know. I miscounted
Yeah, it's a
because
good year.
we recorded an Anno Mini and I counted that as a full episode, but it's not. It was a four. It's a 4 minute episode, I think. So a 4 minute video
4 minutes.
episode. So
Well,
so this week we
so
watched a very questionable movie. We watched Space Jam: New Legacy. This time, this is a follow-up to the Michael Jordan movies from Michael Jordan movie from the '90s, I think, starring LeBron James and LeBron James's son, or at least I don't know if the actor is actually his son. So,
and Ron neglected to tell me this before we started watching it, but did anybody else know that like Bob Dylan's in a lot of the Space Jam movie?
it's pretty amazing. It's pretty amazing because Bugs Bunny doesn't show up until like
And they did that like CGI de-aging thing, like it looks like he's in his early 20s.
Yeah. That was wild. And then when Bugs Bunny comes up and performs Mr. Tambourine Man, that's I don't know, that was the highlight for me.
You know, that might be my all-time favorite Bob Dylan cover.
The Bugs doing
the William Shatner Mr. Tambourine Man.
Oh God. I wonder if I've heard it. I probably have.
Wait, you've never heard the William Shatner Mr. Tambourine Man?
I probably
it's
have.
the only thing he ever did that was better was the Bohemian Rhapsody thing because the music video is so fucking bonkers.
That I definitely have.
Oh yeah, no, I've shown that to I think every person I've ever met at this point. Like that music video, that's my happy place. Is just like detached Shatner head in the sky butchering Queen.
I'm watching it now, or trying to. This isn't it. Is it?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, he has a chorus for the chorus, but then he does.
Oh, there we go.
I'll come following you.
I can't stand it anymore. Oh my God! Wow, that was awful. That little bit. So
yeah, I think I have like an inhuman tolerance for Shatner singing.
Yeah.
Singing. Right. I'm making big air quotes for those of you who aren't Ron and I.
Yeah. So all right. So I watched the first half of Space Jam last night. I fell asleep and I don't feel like going back and rewatching it because the first half was enough. But you watched something else last night and I watched something else this morning, and that's what we're actually going to talk about, with the occasional sprinkling of how Don Cheadle played an algorithm in Space Jam. And literally an algorithm. He was the personification of an algorithm. So there was sort of a Tron thing going on. But sorry, back to Bob Dylan. Would you like to talk about
actual that's just so fucking weird to me that like we're at that point of like anthropomorphizing things. You can have like a credited actor playing an algorithm.
Yeah, it was actually pretty neat. It was my favorite part of the movie. So
okay, well I guess that's a portent of the future.
He's algorithm. It's a Tron thing. You've seen Tron, right?
Yeah.
So they go inside.
Oh, okay, I get it.
Yeah. So you actually go inside the computer, or the serververse, they called it, the Warner Brothers serververse. And so they end up in the world of bits and bytes.
I'm guessing Michael Jordan doesn't show up at all.
Not in the first half, at least. But we barely see the Looney Tunes for the first quarter, so who knows? They do make a few references to, like, been there, done that, about the Looney Tunes playing basketball with a famous basketball hero. Although it was really cute, because LeBron James, like when he first gets turned into a cartoon and he meets Bugs Bunny, and it was like, oh my God, I can't believe it's Bugs Bunny. And Bugs Bunny says, oh my God, is this LeBron James? And LeBron James gets even more excited, like, I can't believe Bugs Bunny knows who I am. So, I thought that was adorable. So,
yeah, he was like the only redeeming part of that like Amy Schumer movie.
Bugs Bunny or LeBron James?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't remember him in it.
He's like Bill Hader's best friend. I got like my dad was in the middle of watching it. I went over for dinner and I ended up watching the whole thing. Like most of that movie is like god awful. Like you start wondering if Judd Apatow has like jumped the shark completely. But LeBron James is very funny in his bit.
Okay. Oh, all right. I'm gonna have to go and watch it just for that. So.
But so for today's episode, we watched the 1967 documentary "Don't Look Back," directed by D.A. Pennebaker or Pennebaker, I'm not sure, and released in 1967, shot in 1965. Very, very famous documentary film, and it falls around Bob Dylan on his 1965 tour of England. Right when he was going electric. So it's like right after Bringing It All Back Home came out, but he hasn't come out with Highway 61 Revisited yet. We see like early versions of some of the songs that ended up on Highway 61 Revisited in the film.
Oh no, keep going.
And it's one of those lightning in a bottle movies, because you've got a major work of cinema verite style documentary right when that whole thing is basically starting, or at least starting to pick up steam. You've got Dylan going electric in terms of the counterculture establishing itself as one of the like 2 or 3 major moments of the 1960s. And you've got this fly on the wall perspective on all of it. And and it comes together. It was pretty entertaining. I found it a lot easier to watch than a lot of other like tour documentary type. Because tour documentaries, usually it's just like, here's some talking heads saying why you bought this DVD. Here's some concert footage. Here's some like staged whatever of the band like rehearsing or like having dinner or something, right? And in this movie, I don't get the sense that any of this was filtered. Like Bob Dylan signed off on it. He agreed to it, but Bob Dylan does not come off well in this movie. And I think that might have been intentional.
Well, this movie answers the age-old question, can Bob Dylan be a dick? And the answer is a resounding.
I don't know if anybody had any like doubts about that, right? I mean, you listen to those records, like especially those like Kiss and Tell songs.
Well, no, and this is just sort of the proof.
Right.
This is, yes, it's not just the songs. It's not just the recordings. It's him as a person. He thinks very well of himself, and he finds it quite acceptable to berate others in front of others. So anyway, that's my summary of the movie. So LeBron James was surprisingly like not bad.
See, you didn't like this movie that much.
LeBron James comes off better in Space Jam: A New Legacy than Bob Dylan comes off in a movie about himself. But I
right,
one of them is acting, and the other one plays a cartoon character. So, anyways, Bob Dylan, Stop Making Sense. Stop Making Sense. Now that's a good concert movie. Because it's a good concert.
That's actually a concert movie, because this is a cinema verite documentary first and a concert movie like distant, because like he purposely never shows more than maybe one verse of any given song.
Yeah, until the very end.
The only person who gets to play a song from beginning to end is Donovan, actually.
Yeah.
And so I guess I'm kind of curious, like what, like did you ever get into Bob Dylan, or was he just sort of like a cultural periphery figure? Like what was your relationship to Bob Dylan coming into the movie?
Yeah, cultural periphery figure, famous singer songwriter from spanning many decades, pivotal artist. I know a bunch of his songs. I can play. I was able to play "Everybody Must Get Stoned" on the ukulele. I meant to practice.
Rainy Day Women 12 and 35.
What was that?
Rainy Day Women 12 and 35.
Is that the name of the song?
That's the actual name of the song, yeah.
Everybody must get stoned. What's it called again? Everyday Women 35?
Rainy Day Women 12 and 35. It's the first song on Blonde on Blonde.
Oh, okay. Well, I was able to play that. Darn, I wish I had picked it up and practiced it. I forgot. That's what I was going to do this morning before watching the movie, and I ended up instead editing the Eno Mini and realizing why it had to be, even though it was a video episode, why we can't record too many video episodes. And there was a very fine example in that one, which I shared with Dan and I shared with a few other people. And we talk about, it's Dan explaining who Negative Land is on one side of the screen. And then the other side of the screen, it's me taking my laptop, turning it around, putting it on the couch next to me, leaning to my side, raising my leg and yawning. Fortunately,
right, as I'm showing the guy's remains.
As you're showing the guy's remains, you're showing human remains, actual human remains, and I'm yawning. So that's
just a warning. Like if you spend too much time with me, you might develop a tolerance.
Yeah. Or if you know me, that I probably at that I had been napping right beforehand. I'd been awake for all of 10 minutes. I hadn't moved from where I'd been sleeping. And I still wanted to sleep. So yeah, this time I learned my lesson. I'm sitting at the table. I'm sleeping at the sitting upright pod studio as opposed to the reclining Passover pod studio. But anyways, yeah. I forgot that I meant to relearn how to play it right beforehand so I could play it on here. How to play Rainy Day Women 12 and 35. How to play that. But so I didn't.
Yeah, I don't know why it's called that, but like that whole album, because there's sort of like the context of this movie is basically Dylan kind of pulls a David Bowie before David Bowie and completely shifts his public persona at the height of his fame.
Oh, okay.
And that's probably where like Bowie took a lot of cues from Dylan. But yeah, so he becomes this incredibly famous protest singer. Times They Are a Changin', Blowing in the Wind. Those like they chart, they become huge. There's all these magazine articles. I think he's probably like 21 when he wrote both of those. And then he kind of realizes, as I think a lot of people do when they get the age where they would have finished college, because I don't think he ever went to college, that they don't want to do this thing that they've been kind of setting up. And so he decides to go back to rock and roll. All the folkies who were all about like tradition and stuff up until Dylan. And I think Dylan going electric is what basically renders like 90% of the folk music to be just sort of museum pieces. Like after that, a lot of folk music, it's just sort of like, oh, okay, we're going to play this like 1930s record kind of accurately, and you should be happy with just that. And so he goes electric. He gets, so the concert we see in the film, he did, I believe, 4 or 5 shows at the Royal Albert Hall ultimately. And every time he took out the electric guitar, there were just like boos. Like they were ready to chase him out of the auditorium. So coming into this movie, a lot of why he's being a dick is basically just like literally, and there's the scene early in the movie where he's talking to the young fan and she's just like, I don't like you with a full band.
Yeah.
Right. And he's just kind of dealing with that all day. Like the movie it kind of most reminded me of was the Gong Show movie. Because like so much of it is just
a lot of things remind you of the Gong Show movie on this.
A lot of the Gong Show movie is surprisingly resonant. But no, they're both movies that largely consist of like surreal kind of standoffish encounters with fans and the reality of celebrity.
Yeah. Fans, other musicians, his friends. Actually, he's pretty cool to the manager.
Yeah, him and Albert Grossman weirdly seem to like get along better than anybody else in the movie. Because like, and I mean, the really interesting thing to me in the scene where he has kind of the song showdown with Donovan is that when Donovan's playing, they cut to this clip of him and I think it's supposed to look like he's tapping his foot to the music. He's totally not. It's not a sync issue. He's not doing it at any time. It's very obvious that he's sitting in a chair stimming in that one scene, which, I mean, he has serious communication problems. He has, I don't know. I'm not going to repeat the mistake I made in the Kevin Smith episode, but you can draw your own conclusions.
Yeah, your conclusion is pretty obvious. You're not hiding it.
Yeah, I'm not hiding much, but I think there might be a little bit of that going on here.
I was thinking that a little bit, but actually, but Mike, I conclude differently. I conclude that no, he's actually kind of a dick.
Oh no, I mean he can also be kind of a dick. Yeah.
Oh, okay. They're not.
Right. I mean, there's also signs pointing to other things.
Okay, right. That's fair.
And yeah, we get to see a lot of different sides of Dylan, and kind of like the Gong Show movie, they're both authorized portraits that are not very flattering. Chuck Barris does not come across looking very good at the end of the Gong Show movie. This one, however, is like on the BFI list and on a bunch of like supposedly there was one poll where this was considered the 8th or 9th best documentary film ever made, which I don't think I would go that far.
Yeah, that's pushing it.
I mean, that's pushing it. Like historical context, it might be. I don't know though, because like there's a fair number of cinema verite movies before this that take on usually, obviously less like exciting subjects. So like there's On the Bowery by Lionel Rogozin. That's all the way back in 1950, and that's just following around a bunch of drunks on the Bowery. But same kind of style of like you're not identifying the people being shown. You're not framing the shots particularly carefully. You're just sort of trying to make the camera as unobtrusive as possible.
Mm-hmm. Oh no, I understand, and you get to see stuff like my favorite part, or one of my favorite parts, was from early on in the movie. Joan Baez is there, and she ends up like making goofy faces to the camera, and then later on,
Joan Baez seemed like she would have been a lot easier to hang out with than Bob Dylan back then.
Oh yeah. She looks like she was fun, like she was fun to hang out with, and then she suddenly just starts, they're all playing and all that, and she just starts kind of singing along. I'm not even sure if she knew if she knew whatever they were singing. No, I mean, she probably did. So,
probably did. Like you're talking about when they start singing what the hell? I'm So Lonesome I Could Cry by Hank Williams.
No, I don't think that was it, because she does it a few times, I think.
Yeah, I think she's mostly playing old folk songs.
Yeah, but yeah, she looked like she'd be fun.
Well, I was looking it up last night, and I was kind of shocked. Like, Joan Baez is the most commercially successful female folk artist of all time.
I'm not surprised.
I did not really, because like, as some of the listeners might know, I owned a record store for a while. It was really obvious she was really popular at one point in time, because like you can find Joan Baez records are not hard to find, any of them. Mm. I've literally never in 10 years worth of selling records had somebody come up and ask me for a Joan Baez record. I don't know if I've ever actually sold a Joan Baez record to somebody, which is really, maybe it's just because I'm not like shooting old enough. But I guess that's usually the most popular, the most commercially successful things tend to be things that people like, they feel like they want to own and then lose interest in later.
Yeah, this is like, oh, I could have gotten the MP3 instead.
Right.
There's plenty of Joan Baez on Spotify.
Like with Dylan, people want to collect stuff. Like there's a collector market. With Baez, there is not a collector market.
No, with Baez, there's a listener market.
I guess so, yeah. And she was like a huge part of that like early 60s like leftist folk revival thing.
Yeah.
That's how she met Dylan. She was still committed to it. Dylan, as you can kind of see in the movie, he's like, why would I believe in anything? Right? He's just sort of sick of people paying that much attention to him and expecting him to write these like political anthem songs.
Right.
When he just kind of really wants to, he's just riffing, right? Like that's another, I can't remember if we were talking about this before we started recording or not, but like kind of precursors to hip hop and Dylan's stuff.
In what way?
Well, so like the Subterranean Homesick Blues video at the beginning of the of Don't Look Back, you have emphasis is entirely on the lyrics, to the point that the music is like very purposely simple. You have no real. He's not really worried about coherence. He's more interested about how do the lines sound next to each other. Can I get rhymes in? Can I get like can I write like he's like playing the dozens with himself. Like so much of that stuff is just sort of like what's the most obnoxious insult I could make right now, or like what are words that sound funny next to each other. Like by the time he gets to Blonde on Blonde, which is the record right after Highway 61 Revisited, so that's where Everybody Must Get Stoned is from. That was probably, he recorded that probably a year after the film was shot. Yeah, it's just like these dense, the songs will go on for 12 minutes if he wants them to go on for 12 minutes. They'll go on for 2 minutes if he wants them to go on for 2 minutes. There's like very little consistency to the point of view. So he'll have I'm trying to think, Visions of Johanna, he does this. Tangled Up in Blue, he does this a lot, but he'll just shift from like telling this sort of very, very vague narrative from the perspective of somebody involved, and then he'll shift to like a third party that's like viewing it from a distance or something, and there's no real indicators of that outside of context. And there's a lot of really, really bizarre use of pronouns in his stuff, which gives it this like, because he's saying these incredibly personal things a lot of the time, but then he's just like using he, she, him, her pronouns, and without any real regard for distinguishing between like various characters in the narrative of the song.
Okay.
That's not a hip hop thing, but the focus on basically like wordplay is a form of athletics almost. Like they're remarkably unpolished songs for how well they work. And yeah, and I think that kind of comes through in the film. Like what I think was so exciting for people about Dylan in 65 was that I think the fact that he's coming across as a dick, like in 1965, 67, it probably came across more like there were different cultural values established in connection to being a dick in 1965, I guess is what I'm saying. So it just sort of looks like he doesn't give a shit about anything, really. He's just going to do his thing.
Right, including the people around him.
And I think like authorizing the documentary was part of that. Like I think he purposely did this to basically like scare off his old audience
by showing them what a dick he'll be to them if they ask him to play his old stuff.
Basically, yeah, because like he feels this incredible pressure on it. I'm projecting, or I'm speculating here, but he's got, he's 21 years old. Everybody's telling him he's the voice of a generation. They're expecting him to make these incredibly important philosophical, political, whatever pronouncements constantly everywhere he goes. And, they're trying to build him up to be some kind of Pete Seeger figure. His temperament does not allow for that. He is not a Pete Seeger, right? And so he probably figured just sort of like, if these people idolize me, let's just, show them me being crappy.
Yeah.
For an hour and a half.
Oh, so
it's really like the musical parts, when he starts singing, it's kind of mesmerizing. And I didn't realize until I was reading up on it a few days ago that like the number of takes on most of those records, like he would only do 3 or 4 takes on a song. And so it's a little shocking to see him, and also his voice is still kind of there. So he starts singing, it sounds exactly like the record when he's just sitting in the Chelsea Hotel. But yeah, we don't actually see a ton of music because I don't think the music is what Pennebaker's really that interested in. I think Pennebaker's kind of interested in the persona.
Yeah. I mean, this isn't a concert movie. It's a documentary. It's a documentary about a musician on the road with the musician, which I was glad for. I was actually expecting a mostly a concert film with a little bit of documentary footage in between.
Yeah, so, no, I wouldn't have as much a full concert film because like there's just not a lot to talk about. Generally speaking, it's like, oh, was it recorded well? Did they play well? Was the set list decent? Good, right? Persona, and I think like with the persona, Dylan kind of invented a lot of the sort of playbook for modern celebrity and how to handle it, get ahead of it. Because I mean, he was one of the first people in the age of mass media where he actually pulled off like a complete mid-career reinvention. I can't think of a lot of other entertainers before that who did that. But yeah, like building up the persona, like the whole thing where every single David Bowie record except Black Star has a different kind of stylized portrait of Bowie on the front of it. Dylan did that first. That was every Dylan record from the 60s. I think every Dylan record up until 1989, or no, 1979, because the Saved doesn't have a picture of him on it. It's just like evolving portraits showing, giving like cues as to what he was trying to represent. So like the first Bob Dylan record, he's dressed like Woody Guthrie or something. By the time that this movie rolls around, he's basically dressed like kind of like Jewy looking James Dean. Right? Like the Highway 61 Revisited album cover. Speaking of which, that's like the best floral print button-down T-shirt I've ever seen in my life. I would kill for that thing. The shirt that he's wearing on the Highway 61 sleeve.
Okay. So what I'm hearing is Dylan did it first, but Bowie did it better.
I mean,
anyways, move on. No need to address that comment. Move on. I was just trolling you.
Yeah, no. I mean,
whether I believe it or not, I was just trolling you.
I think Bowie had better commercial instincts by and large too. Like Bowie, I mean, I also think Bowie was more concerned with people liking him. Yeah,
totally.
Like Dylan, you don't get the sense, like you get the sense that he could have been like torn out of a fucking. He could not give less of a shit about anything going on around him until somebody throws a glass out a window, and then he's like all about party fouls. So like that scene goes on for so long.
Oh God, yeah. Okay, all right. Can I bring up something personal? Cut me off if it's so. Dan's having a birthday party Dan just celebrated his birthday, but he's having a birthday party in a week, and I'm going out there, and it's going to be a bonfire, and there's going to be people drinking, and I was asking about different people about them being drunk, because I starting off saying I think drunk people can be fun even if I'm totally sober, but I realize there's a qualification to that. Are they racist drunks? Are they otherwise bigoted drunks, or are they belligerent drunks? And this was a fine, and I was asking about that. And Bob Dylan, the way he behaves about the glass being thrown in the street, that's a belligerent drunk. That's one of the kinds of drunks that I don't like being around. Even if his criticism was legitimate, that nobody should have thrown a glass out in the street. But the way he goes on about it is awfully belligerent and uncalled for. So that there wasn't really anything too personal. There was more me bringing up that you're having a party.
I'm having a party,
and everyone's invited to it. Yeah.
And Bob Dylan, I don't think Bob Dylan's going to make it. It's a little bit of a drive.
No.
I mean, Bob Dylan does have like ties to upstate New York, but if Bob Dylan shows up at my birthday party, that would be very, very odd.
Well,
like if I just made $300 million, would I be like, I wouldn't be showing up to my party, and I'm Dan. It's my party.
Well, sure, he's not going to show up without an invitation. Did you send him the Evite? Dan,
I mean, he's not going to show up for the Nobel Committee. He's not showing up for my backyard barbecue, whatever.
Yeah. I don't know. Don't sell yourself short.
Yeah, maybe that was the prize he was really looking for, was the Dan Levine's backyard.
Should we ask Mike LaBelle if he wants to come?
I mean, it's a long drive from Toronto, but what the hell?
Yeah, it's what, like
it's going to be like the ravine up here.
Is it even 10 hours? It's probably not even. No,
it's probably a shorter drive than Bob Dylan. Although Bob Dylan probably also like can just step on a private plane or something.
Right. He could take the jet out there. He could take out to the jet to the Saratoga Metropolitan International Airport. Make his way. He could touch down in your backyard. You've got that driveway, that really long driveway.
Right. Yeah, the driveway. I got to get the driveway all cleaned up or I got to get the front yard all cleaned up that's in a week. Wow. I got to get everything done by Friday.
Yeah.
I can do it.
Yeah, you've got to get it done by Friday because I'm going to be there on Friday. I expect everything to be pristine by then. Yeah, so Bob Dylan.
And it was interesting. This is also the first ever D.A. Pennebaker movie I watched all the way through, believe it or not.
Why haven't you seen the rest? Have you started?
Supposedly, this is the best one. I think I saw bits of like the War Room, the one he did about the Clinton campaign in '92.
Okay.
But yeah, and it was pretty interesting. I think there's some other verite documentarians that I found more interesting in the past. But he does a really good job of like being unobtrusive. We don't really get the sense that like nobody seems to acknowledge the camera's even there for the whole movie to like kind of a shocking extent.
Yeah. You never hear him ask a single question or anything. He's observing. There's he's observing.
And this is a few years before Frederick Wiseman made his first institution. Or no, actually, no, this would have been it would have come out a year before, this would have come out the same year as the Titicut Follies. So, Titicut Follies is probably the better movie in my humble estimation. But, there was a lot to like here. There was, and I've just been on like a Dylan kick all week because I'm ripping all my CDs. And most of my Dylan stuff was on CD, so now it's just all sitting on my computer and I can get to it easily. And man, those mid-'60s records are so good.
Do you have a favorite album?
Favorite Blonde on Blonde, definitely. And I think that's like universally considered the best one, but there's a reason for that. That was the first rock and roll double album. And I mean, I think it shows like how much everybody was taking cues from Dylan, that he came out with Blonde on Blonde, which, I mean, I can't think of a double album before then except for like opera collections, stuff like that, or like classical stuff where the piece didn't fit on one record. And then within 2 years, you got the White Album, you got a few more years after that, you got Exile on Main Street, you got Tommy, just the whole format of the double record, rock, epic, whatever thing. Like that was, it's a cliche now, but he's the guy who did it first. And the songs range from, they're just all over the place. You know, there's one thing where it's clear that he's, like, Everybody Must Get Stoned is really obviously just him kind of goofing around in the studio compared to the rest of it. But then you also got there's a 5-minute long song that seems to entirely revolve around the fact that he finds the phrase leopard skin pillbox hat amusing. But then you've also got these incredible breakup songs where he's just sort of, they're not the nicest things in the world, but the lines resonate.
Do you have a favorite song on that album?
Yeah. My favorite song on that record is probably most likely You'll Go Your Way and I'll Go Mine.
You can go your own way.
No, that's Fleetwood Mac. You can go your own way.
That I can play on the ukulele. I'm sorry, but
I mean, I bet you could play most of these songs on the ukulele.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I don't get the sense he's doing anything that complicated with the guitar.
No, or with his voice.
On any of this stuff. But yeah, what I like about Most Likely You'll Go Your Way and I'll Go Mine is that there's like 3 or 4 songs on the record that are just straight up like raw garage rock shit. That's probably the most like rowdy and kind of aggressive and like Louie sounding song on the record.
Okay.
And it's just one fucking zinger after another. like if because like Leonard Cohen and Bob Dylan are both obsessed with writing breakup songs. Leonard Cohen internalizes, Bob Dylan externalizes. And if you put both on the stereo afterwards, you can maybe reach some kind of middle ground. Right? But like I mean, he just fucking cuts it like you say you love me and you're thinking of me, but sometimes you're wrong. Right. And he's just like,
hey Dan, actually yeah. I don't know how to play I wrote it down as Everybody Must Get Stoned, not as Rainy Day Women 12 and 35. Because it's supposed to be plucked. But if I played it the way I wrote it down with the chords, so it's using the chords, but while plucking two strings at a time, like something like this is how I have it written down. I forget exactly how it's supposed to go, but it's supposed to be like, I don't know. You can hear the first part of it and then the rest. But the way I have it written down is. Would you recognize it?
I mean, it'd have to be some singing. I mean, I think the defining instrument on that recording is the fucking drunk tambourine that the guy's playing in the background.
Yeah. No, if I actually played it, plucking it, you would hear it. It's pretty obvious. It's simple, but it's pretty obvious. But no, I wrote down the chords and I forgot to write down the plucking. So that's left out the most important part.
Oh, I used to be able to play Most Likely I mean, I could figure it out again. It's not a complicated song, but yeah, that's sort of like the mirror image of like From a Buick 6 on Highway 61 Revisited, which is sort of like the like manic garage rock Bob Dylan style love song, which I really like. But yeah, like Blonde on Blonde is one of the big, like that's up there with Pet Sounds and the White Album in terms of just records you can go back to many times and still keep getting stuff out of.
Many times.
Many times, yep. The master of making insult was Bob Dylan, for no doubt. There's the oh shit, what's that song on Highway 61 Revisited? I forget what the name of the song is, but there's a point in it where he's just like, "You've read all of F. Scott Fitzgerald's books," but he's drawing this portrait of like the boring kind of middle class whatever person that and I guess there's a political angle to that I hadn't really thought about earlier, because that was like a huge issue within the civil rights movement, which he was involved with before he went electric. Kind of the thing that Martin Luther King said, where it's like our real enemies aren't the conservatives, it's the moderates that are going to stand in the way and act as gatekeepers, something like that.
Okay.
Right. And so you got like all these people who are sort of like, well, I think the blacks should be able to do whatever they want to do. But, do they have to make such a ruckus in the public square about it? They're going to get more by being polite and asking kind of people, right? And Dylan just fucking like tears into those people with like no mercy, which I always appreciate. Like he, at least on the records, when he's being nasty, it's usually towards a deserving target.
Okay.
Most of the time, sometimes he's just being a dick. And actually, speaking of Fleetwood Mac, like him and Joan Baez, they kind of invented the like Stevie Nicks era Fleetwood Mac thing, right? Like where you got these two people, they used to date. They're like their Facebook status is it's complicated, and they're just arguing with each other like on the pop charts. Like Diamonds and Rust, and then he comes out with any number of break it. That's my favorite kind of Dylan song, is basically the like relationship post-mortem / kiss and tell thing, because that seems to be when he's most himself and he's just sort of like speaking directly. I spent a massive amount of my youth hanging around the oldest folk music coffee venue place in the US, because it's in downtown Saratoga. It's called Cafe Lena. And Dylan played there once in 1963. That's how old this place is.
You know where else he played?
The Royal Albert Hall.
That too, but he played at Club 47, which was actually where Joan Baez performed more. And she got paid, I think, $12 for her first performance there. And that's a small place in Cambridge, which I didn't realize was like some super famous place that Joan Baez, Bob Dylan, and others performed at over the years. It's now called Club Passim. So I just knew it as Club Passim, this tiny little place that at one point served vegetarian or vegan food that my friend performed at. I didn't realize it had any kind of history. It's possible somebody told me and I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, and Dylan played Lena's, and my parents actually knew Lena because Lena died in '89. She was just running the cafe by herself for pretty much since like I think it was like 1960 she opened it. And Dylan comes in '63 before he's sort of a known commodity. He has a record out, but he's not the massive celebrity that he became pretty soon after. This is, before the Beatles came to the US and everything. And he goes up. The crowd is basically mostly drunk, and they talk through his entire first set.
Okay.
And Lena comes out, and you figure he's like 21 years old at this point. Lena comes out, and she's like, everybody shut the fuck up. This kid drove here from New York City. And then like a third of the crowd walked out. So you figure that's what Dylan was probably dealing with up to this point, which is probably, that's another hip hop thing, right? Like everybody was hating on me for years and years. I'm bitter about it. And now I'm getting this like massive amount of affection from the outside that I can't trust. Right. That's what like there's a lot of hip hop songs about like, now that I'm famous, everybody says that they were like my best friend when I was younger, or something like that, right? And there's an element of that here, I think. In some way, I mean, it seems like his life just consists of like literally everywhere he goes, there's some kind of eccentric person just kind of presenting it. Like maybe my favorite scene in the movie is when there's the fucking like old British lady next door, and she's like, you must come stay in my country manor next time you come to visit.
Yeah.
He's just in the hallway with her for 10 minutes, and you can tell he's just looking at it. It's like, I'm never going to see this person again in my life, right? Like, I don't know who this is.
That's kind of what I thought, and I felt bad for her because she seemed so sincere. She was excited, and here's this, it's probably, she was appreciating the music, probably not her cup of tea, probably not what she normally would put on, but she was also enjoying it. And she it was like her 3 sons or something who were supposed to be studying for their exams, but they really wanted to meet Bob Dylan. She was like, oh, come. I think she was the Lord Mayor's wife or something like that.
Something like that. Yeah, I mean, she's like a really sweet old lady. It's just got to be really disorienting having like people that you met 2 minutes ago saying like, please come stay at my house.
Yeah.
A lot. Or at least I think it would be. I don't know. Maybe I'm just like a Dylan apologist.
You're a celebrity apologist.
I'm a celebrity apologist.
So I probably told you this one before, but I had, this is years ago, but one of my best friends at the time lived in Minneapolis, and I went out to visit him, and it was over Memorial Day weekend, and it turns out they've got Dylan Days or Dylan Fest or something like that, in which they people perform. There's a whole bunch of artists, local and maybe otherwise, I don't know, and they perform a lot of Dylan stuff. I don't remember if they perform other stuff too, but I don't think Bob Dylan goes. But it's all these people who.
No, I mean that's like the last thing Bob Dylan
would go to is a concert about him, or is a whole not concert, a whole festival about himself. But so he was a musician himself, you know, people in the industry. So I know I went twice on Memorial Day because the second time that I visited Minneapolis, Dylan days were going on as well. So anyways, there's a Memorial Day barbecue at another friend's, and they're all musicians, and they're all sitting around talking about, you know, what they're showing and where they performed and doing this and all that. And they're just dropping all these names. These are all like maybe local Minneapolis celebrities. I don't think any of them had been heard outside of maybe they've been heard all the way in St. Paul.
Minneapolis has had some pretty huge names too, like the Replacements, yes. Westerberg, Prince was from Minneapolis.
Yeah, I think Westerberg was big at the time that I was there. But so anyways, they're all talking about this stuff and this and that. And they turn to me and they say, "So Ron, what do you play?" And it says, "Oh, I'm just a star fucker." Silence, then some laughter, and then it goes on. And my friend thanked me. He thought that was the best thing. It was exactly what all those people needed. They all sing so well of themselves. And so that I didn't mean to like insult all of them, but apparently I cut them down to size. So I'm just a star fucker. It was, you know, so.
Oh yeah, it's really hard to make like a celebrity encounter story interesting or not make it sound just like I touched the lucky rabbit's foot or something, right?
Yeah. I remember I was once, it was another barbecue. I was visiting a friend in Seattle, and it was somebody he knew. He was invited to another backyard barbecue. So I went with him because I was visiting him. I didn't live there at the time. And there was somebody else there who was the host's neighbor. And he kept throwing out names and stuff like that. And then it turned out he was like, I don't know, I don't want to say the name of the band because I'd be insulting him. You know, this is headed towards an insult. There isn't much there.
Did you meet Scott Stapp?
No. I don't. Oh, interesting. I don't know the name of the person, but he was in a band. All I'll say is that the band is a variation on the name of an animal. And he was the drummer for it, I think. Drummer or band.
Pantera?
Yeah.
Wait, you met the drummer for fucking Pantera?
Yeah.
Holy shit, we gotta tell Alex this. Alex would like flip shit right now.
Oh, yeah.
He's like a huge, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, he thought really well of himself. He thought it was a really big fucking deal. And to me, it was like, I think I've heard of Pantera.
We're talking about like metal shit. Like that's pretty big deal, yeah. That's like one of the 10 or 15 most famous bands in the genre.
Yeah, and to me, it was like, I think I've heard of them. I know they're.
I mean, yeah. If you're not in the scene, it's sort of like my cousin. Well, I'm not going to name him, but if there's anybody in Long Island that was a fan of the emo band, the Goodwill, my cousin was in the band, the Goodwill. I don't know if they had a lot of fans. I don't think he's doing it anymore, but he got like kind of big in the emo scene, or like big enough where they were able to put out a record called "That Was a Moment," which had. Oh God. Okay, I can't go dumping on the cover art for this record because I'm related to this person, but go look at it. He's doing well now. He married some guy. He seems happy. He's out. Anyway,
Dan, there's so much information. It'll take me like 2 Google searches to find it, or 2 Google searches.
Well, I mean, it would be a little bit harder to figure out like which one's related to me. I think because we don't have the same last name, but. Anyway, so he meets the guys from Taking Back Sunday. He like played a show with Taking Back Sunday or something, and yeah, we go to this family event, and he's just like, you know, because to him, you know, Taking Back Sunday, that's one of the huge emo bands, and to me, it's just like emo is fucking stupid.
Yeah,
I'm out of high school. I don't care about emo. I'm 21 years old. I have it in me to be a bigger asshole than Bob Dylan at that point in my life. And I'm just sort of like so unimpressed with this Taking Back Sunday thing. This is really ultimately a story about me being a dick, right? But yeah. I mean, I wasn't. I don't. I think I kept my mouth shut for the most part. I was Taking Back Sunday is like, yeah, you know that song? No, I don't know. I don't care about. I didn't say like I don't care about Taking Back Sunday. I don't care about Taking Back Sunday, but I wasn't going to say that. directly to. But yeah, like that's totally, if I met the dude from Pantera, it would be like, I don't know any Pantera records really, because metal's not my thing. I know that they're big because I made money on Pantera stuff, but like,
I knew they were famous, that. I just wasn't sure if I'd ever heard of them. And the nasty part of me probably thought something like, your band name is pretentious and dumb. I was actually having a really nice conversation with them.
I got it on the first try. That was like that was basically me making a joke.
Yeah, how did you get that? Did I tell you this before, or did you?
No, you said anything named after an animal, and that was the first one I could think of.
Oh, okay.
Like the second one I was going to think of was like the scorpions or something.
All right.
White snake.
Yeah. But no, I had a really nice conversation with him, and I was enjoying it. And when somebody talks to me about something that they're really interested or passionate about, I get kind of excited. It might be in one ear and out the other. I'm not going to remember a thing. It's not going to like get me interested.
Well, I mean, you've made it through 94 episodes of this podcast.
Exactly. I can barely even remember how to spell Cassavetes. But I did recognize his camera style in this movie.
Oh yeah. And this was like, and this kind of gives a little insight into why people thought that the Cassavetes stuff, and Cassavetes like playing into this, but it's all scripted. He would pretend that it was improvised because that would get him press, that would allow him to get money to make more movies. And so at the time, a lot of the negative reviews, because this came out like a year before Faces did, and about 10 years after Shadows. And Faces looks very similar to this movie. Like, it's about a very different subject matter, but it's shot very similarly. And so the reviewers were just sort of like, this is low effort bullshit. Why are you just showing us your home movies? We don't care. And that was a lot of or at least that was like half the initial critical reception to Cassavetes. You'd have like very, very enthusiastic people, and then just a lot of people where it's like, I paid $1 or whatever it was to get into a movie back then to go see this, and you can't even focus the camera. Like, what the fuck? I want my money back, right?
Whereas in this one, it's like the camera shouldn't be focused. Actually, the camera was always in focus, so it wasn't the case here.
They were using like super fast film stock, so they wouldn't have to focus it, and they could shoot indoors.
Yeah. No, actually, the camera work was quite good. I thought, and it was quite appropriate.
I thought the camera work was good. I thought the sound, like the sync sound, given how little, because like Pennebaker basically built his own camera from scratch for this.
Really?
So that he could do the sync sound properly. Because there just wasn't a good way to do that quickly in a documentary fashion before then. And yeah, the sound is like, it's not always the most audible, but compared to a lot of similarly shot films from that period I've watched, the sound was honestly very well done.
Yeah. Except for that one scene in which there's something wrong with the microphone connection, and they end up having to go behind stage and look up and see. And they finally managed to fix the microphone. But I don't know, why didn't they just reshoot that bit?
Well, they didn't reshoot anything. Yeah.
No.
And I was watching a little bit, so I got some insight. So the set that I have with this film, it's 2 discs. Actually, I'll go grab it because there's a. I think I told you about this last night. It's a pretty cool DVD box set as they come. Comes with like with DVD box sets, it's not about how many extras, it's about how the quality, and this has some pretty high quality extras. But yeah, it comes with a second disc where basically Pennebaker went back 40 years later, took the unused footage and cuts together this like 60-minute alternate cut of the whole thing. And it becomes very clear, and I mean, granted, this is early enough in the cinema verite game where I'm not gonna fault Pennebaker on this. It probably made for a more interesting movie, but Dylan comes across as so much more normal and kind of quiet and reserved in all the other footage. Like the other footage, it's just sort of like some dude doing his job, basically.
Okay.
Oh, so get groceries.
So the part which is nasty are the interesting bits.
the parts in the movie, right? It's the man bites dog parts, right? Like
Okay.
in my movie with all the interviews, there was 20 hours of footage that I had to work with. End product is 47 minutes. A lot of the stuff that I cut would have probably made the interview subjects look a lot less kind of outlandish, but the stuff that was interesting was the outlandish stuff, right?
Sort of like the way we're going to cut out my experience with the drummer from Pantera.
Right. But yeah, this is one of the neatest things I ever saw in a DVD box set. So this is a little flip book.
Okay.
I don't know if it's going to come across on camera, but
It probably won't come across in audio. Flip, 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 flip.
Definitely not. But do you see what's going on there?
Oh, it's him holding up and dropping the signs.
It's the Subterranean Homesick Blues thing.
Yeah.
But in a little flip book, which is super cool.
But why does the movie begin with him ripping off In Excess? Like the whole thing with standing in front of the camera, standing outside and holding up giant cue cards and then dropping them so that they match the ending of every line.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's good that we should talk about that because that's probably the first modern music video.
I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah. The first that I
can read your mind now, Dan.
Conceived and produced like a music video as opposed to like a sequence from in an avant-garde film or a sequence from like a musical or something.
Yeah.
And so that clip is like incredibly, you can find references, 100, there's probably as many references to that music video that begins this movie as there are to like playing chess with death and the Seventh Seal. Like it's just a thing that's been chewed up and absorbed into the culture a million times.
Yeah, I never realized that was all a reference to a Bob Dylan thing.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, hey, they're doing that thing in that video. Oh, there it is.
And after that, the Beatles actually, I used to have I don't know where the hell it went to, but the Beatles did music videos. That's a little known fact. They were not, there was no MTV, but they would kind of screen them as bumpers on the BBC or something, and you'd have just this surreal promotional clip of whatever. And they only started doing that after this came out, basically.
Oh, okay.
And Dylan actually had the idea for the video. That was how the whole movie started, was basically Pennebaker met Dylan in a bar. Dylan said, I want to make this music video with these cue cards. And then Pennebaker used that to get access to the tour.
Pennebaker said, can I make a whole movie about you? And Dylan said, how could you not?
Right. Well, I mean, Pennebaker, according to Pennebaker, Dylan was incredibly easy to work with, which I could believe just because, like, as a documentarian, the thing you want is a person who is not conscious of cameras, right?
Mm-hmm.
You want somebody where they're not super worried about, they're not going to be standing over your shoulder the whole editing process. And Dylan and Pennebaker worked together a few times, again, after this movie, which is kind of, it's like weird because Dylan seems very full of himself in this movie. At the same time, like, I feel like somebody who, because he's not stupid. Watching this movie, I don't think he would think he came across particularly well, but he was still sort of on board with it entirely, which is kind of fascinating.
I could imagine, again, this is projecting, this is trying to imagine what somebody else is thinking and what their behavior is like, or explanations for it. But I could imagine him thinking, I'm right. So there's nothing wrong with that. I was right. I did the right thing, which makes it all okay.
And to be fair, like, he acts like a dick sometimes, but in terms of rock and roll documentaries, like, he's not going out doing drugs. Half the time we see him, he's just like sitting around working. Like it was, like, I mean, it is his job, but like it was a 9 to 5 or something. Like, he doesn't really do much. He's just sitting around in hotel rooms most of the time.
Yeah. His manager does more. Albert Grossman.
Yeah, he's cranky, but he's not like if you shot if you shot a documentary like this about Led Zeppelin, like 5 years later, you know, like, you'd probably have like child pornography on your hands in part of it.
Yeah.
Like we went over like the Laurie Maddox stuff with Led Zeppelin on here, right?
Yep.
You ever heard about that?
Yep. Yeah, we talked about it.
Yeah, so like I guess in terms of rock and roll excess, it's like all pretty forgivable relative. but at the same time, yeah, he just comes across as so prickly.
Yeah.
And like when he goes on that tirade against the Time magazine reporter, and the thing that kind of, or one of the things about this film that kind of fascinates me is it's very hard to tell if or when he's smoking marijuana off camera, because there's definitely parts of the movie where he seems like he's intoxicated.
Yeah.
But we don't ever see any indication of what, why, or how.
We see him, well, at first I thought we see him smoking something that at first I thought was a joint, but it actually might just be a hand-rolled cigarette.
He smokes a lot of cigarettes in this movie, yeah.
Yeah. But
basically like a chain smoker at that point in his life.
There's one that's like for a little bit, it's right in the center of the camera, sort of like that Coke can in Mac and Me. So in this one, he's promoting hand-rolled cigarettes.
Right. I mean, the thing that kind of struck me is he keeps smoking in the car with all the windows rolled down. Like, who the hell does that?
Why, you don't want to get the smoke in the car?
Or, I mean, all the windows rolled up, excuse me.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Like, you notice that whenever he smokes in the car, the windows are not down.
Yeah, it's not his car. He doesn't care.
Right, I guess it's not his car. And also, like, if you roll down the windows, you wouldn't be able to get any useful audio for the film portion of it. But
that's true, right.
And
you can't tell him not to smoke cigarettes, because then you're not getting a real experience. Yeah, it didn't feel like anything was staged in this. At one point, when they're at the little room, I'm not sure if it was at the hotel or it was the rehearsal room on the next to the stage, and there's like 20 people in there. It's a scene from a Marx Brothers movie, and it's like the camera is just trying to fit in there and move. And it's like, I have no room. But there's nothing staged about it. It's like, let me see if I could sneak in through that way and face the person that's talking.
It's just like it's a person at the party.
Yeah.
And
right.
So you know the backstory behind the hotel that he's in, right?
No.
For a lot of it.
No, I don't know.
So a lot of it, he's very, and I've been in the Chelsea Hotel. So you ever heard of the Chelsea Hotel in New York?
Yep.
Yeah, that's where he's staying. That's for a lot of the movie when he's not in England.
Wait, is he in England the whole movie?
Huh?
I thought he was in England for the entire movie.
Is he in England for the entire movie? It looks a lot like the Chelsea Hotel. I know Dylan was staying in maybe I'm mistaking it, but it looked a lot like the room that I was in when I hung out there one night.
Wait, the one in which they yell at where Albert Grossman yells at the person?
No, that's in England, but like earlier on in the movie, he's in, I think when he's like typing and Joan Baez is singing.
Maybe. Oh, I just assumed that was in England, because I thought the whole maybe.
I have to look it up. I feel like there's definitely a sequence in this where he's in the Chelsea. I mean, that or maybe just all hotels in that period look the same, and the Chelsea Hotel never updated.
Yeah.
But it looked a lot like. And the Chelsea Hotel, if you ever get the chance to walk through there, they used to accept art in lieu of money.
Oh.
And they had all these famous, like, because I mean, the Chelsea Hotel's been in New York City for years and years and years. And so they got like Mondrians and stuff on the walls just going up the stairs, because that's like they got paid with it.
Okay.
Really worth swinging by if you're in New York.
Worth a trip to the Chelsea Hotel in-person museum. Living museum. It's a living museum.
It's a living museum, and you walk through here and you think like Janis Joplin gave Leonard Cohen a blowjob somewhere around here.
Is there a plaque?
Because
that's plaque.
I don't think there's a plaque, but there's that, like, you know that Leonard Cohen song Chelsea Hotel Number 2?
No, but I do now.
You were giving me head on the unmade bed. He's talking about Janis Joplin in the Chelsea Hotel.
Oh wow, was she alive when that came out?
No.
Okay. All right, then I guess it's a tribute.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not like he's kissing and telling, but he's not saying anything. He's not Bob Dylan. Like if it was Bob Dylan, it would be like you and your fake Texas bullshit, blah 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 blah. Hotel room. There's not a lot of sex in Bob Dylan's songs. There's a lot of like emotional recrimination, but when he does kind of reference sex, it's usually as like a double entendre or some kind of like almost like Beavis and Butthead joke.
It's too bad that Joan Baez wasn't not Joan Baez. Everybody's Joan Baez now. It's too bad that Janis Joplin wasn't around to write the response to Leonard Cohen, in which one of the lyrics went something like, "You were the softest thing I ever held."
Well, Janis Joplin never wrote anything, but
yeah,
that I'm aware of.
She would have had Chris Christopher.
I mean, with Joan Baez, we did get to hear her Bob Dylan diss record. Just nobody remembers it.
Right.
Well, no, I mean, I'm sure plenty of people remember it, but it's not in the living memory the same way that like Don't Think Twice, It's All Right is. But yeah, yeah. So we covered the hotel. We covered the music video angle. We covered. I mean, and also there's parts of the movie that are unintentionally, or at least framed like a direct response to A Hard Day's Night.
Mm-hmm.
We have that one scene where Dylan's getting like literally chased by fans in the street, and I couldn't help but think of that opening, the famous opening sequence, The Hard Day's Night, where it's just the Beatles getting chased through.
Yeah.
And that's like probably
in this one, there really is just somebody hanging onto the back of the car as they're driving away.
Oh yeah, that's like fucking hilarious. Can somebody tell that girl to get off my car?
Yeah. No, they're yelling at the people in the street, asking them if they could take the person off the car.
Well, yeah, that's actually. Well, I'm just thinking about the sex thing because I never thought that until just now about it. But they're so because like Leonard Cohen, there's a lot of sex stuff floating around in there. With Bob Dylan, like the closest you get are like these things where he's smart enough where it's got to be like a double. Like there's a song that the last side of Blonde on Blonde is this 12-minute song called Sad-Eyed Lady of the Lowlands. Most of the record is about him realizing that him and Joan Baez need to break up, and then he's kind of starting this other relationship with this woman named Sarah Lowndes. And so the chorus of that, and like I've heard this record, I only found out that it was like a wedding gift to this woman like maybe a week ago. So until then, I thought it was like Desolation Row. It's this like long, very depressing sounding song that's apparently like a. And so, do you think this is a sex joke? Right, the chorus of the thing is what is it? Sad-eyed lady of the lowlands, sad-eyed lady of the lowlands, where the sad-eyed prophets say that no man comes.
Oh yeah, I guess so.
Right, it sounds kind of, or like earlier on the record, there's a, what is it? You know I need your lovin', honey. You know I need your lovin', but honey, you're so hard. There's no way that he wasn't aware of that. Like you could play a pretty robust game of like Bob Dylan lyric. That's what she said.
Here, let's try it. Say, do those lyrics again.
You know I want your lovin', but honey, you're so hard.
That's what she said.
It works.
Yeah, kind of. Wait, say the other lyric again. Say what was the first one you said?
Oh, sad-eyed lady of the lowlands, where the sad-eyed prophets say that no man comes.
That's what she said. Man, it doesn't work as well.
Well, okay, and the sex joke thing. Another argument for the sex joke thing is that the logical thing to rhyme with that would be where the sad-eyed prophets say that no man goes, right? Because it rhymes with low and lowlands.
Yeah.
And then he's specifically avoiding that to say comes. And then there's a bunch of references to her ex-husband in the song. I think it's a veiled thing. Basically, he's trying to say like the other guy was like impotent or something. But that's me.
Kind of like Janis Joplin's response to Leonard Cohen.
Well, I mean, Janis Joplin's response to Leonard Cohen was like dropping dead a year later, I think. But What? Too soon?
What was that? Too soon? But yeah, so Bob Dylan, Bob Zimmerman, Robert Zimmerman. Does he go by Bob or Robert Zimmerman?
I think he goes by, he legally changed his name to Bob Dylan.
Did he really? Oh.
Yeah, like before the movie even, he changed it to Bob Dylan pretty early. And like when
Wow, talk about self-hating.
There's not a lot of personal details that are known. Like I couldn't find like anything on his childhood really beyond that he was in Minnesota.
Yeah.
And he listened to the radio, right? I get the sense there was something was up because like his thing about the legal name change was like sometimes you're born to the wrong parents with the wrong name. You know how it, right? It's like I feel like his parents wouldn't be that happy about hearing that. But
no, let's see. Born blah 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 blah. Born Robert Allen Zimmerman, or
he had like a full Hebrew.
What was that?
He had like a full Hebrew birth name in addition to that too. Like you get the sense his parents at the very least were like very culturally Jewish.
Dylan formed several, this is from Wikipedia. Dylan formed several bands while attending Hibbing High School. He performed covers of songs by Little Richard and Elvis Presley. He lived at the Jewish-centric fraternity Sigma Alpha Mu. He started to introduce himself as Bob Dylan, after Dylan Thomas. Oh yeah, there's the quote. Oh, is it? Were you reading the Wikipedia article or?
Yeah. I read the Wikipedia article. Like a lot of the guys that he met in New York City when he met Woody Guthrie were hanging around Saratoga a lot because Lena Spencer, who owned the cafe, would like Dave Van Ronk and Ramblin' Jack Elliott and Utah Phillips and those guys, they all when they'd like they were broke because they blew all their money drinking or something, they'd be sleeping in the back room of Lena's.
Oh,
so those guys were hanging around Saratoga Springs a lot. So I mean Saratoga Springs just because of the cafe and a few other things. There's a lot of folk music history intersection with that area, I think, compared to science. So maybe I like folk music has always seemed a lot more relevant to me than it probably actually is in the larger world. There's just a huge pocket. It's sort of like I know I'm in the last place in the world where you're going to end up in an argument about Joseph Campbell once a week.
And yet you do?
Yeah. There's a lot of Joseph Campbell nuts out here.
Oh, okay. All right. I'm glad that you said nuts because that was like not a. I didn't take that as a. I don't know. Maybe you didn't use the word nuts in the way that I'm thinking of it. But that doesn't make me think well of the area.
I mean, it makes sense because there's a lot of Gnostics around here. Joseph Campbell is extremely appealing to Gnostics because he's basically talking about the same stuff, like reconciling all the world religions into one coherent system.
Yeah.
He's doing the stuff about folklore. He's saying that the kind of like the Robert Graves white goddess thing. He's trying to bring it all together, which like Gnosticism, which for whatever reason is huge up here. I mean, there's a lot of religious mystics have been in upstate New York at various points in history. And actually, the first religious cult in the United States was in Oneida, New York, the Oneida Perfectionists in the 19th century. So there's a lot of religious myths, and Campbell also used to teach at Sarah Lawrence, which is only like an hour or two away. So he probably gave a bunch of talks around here back in the day. But yeah, it's like weird getting out here. It's like the fucking the intellectual, or I would consider Joseph Campbell to be an intellectual. I don't know if it held up that well, but like I'm not gonna be like Joseph Campbell's a charlatan or something, For some reason, I hear a lot about him, and I hear a lot about Sam Harris, who Sam Harris is a charlatan. Sam Harris is unambiguously a charlatan, but for some reason, there's a lot of people who really got in with the Sam Harris thing when that whole new atheism thing was big, when Dawkins published The God Delusion like 15 years ago or whatever. And oh my God, I don't think I heard the word Sam Harris the entire time I was in Boston, but there's just so much. I mean, I guess he's like sort of useful as like a backstop to explain stuff, because he's like pretty textbook conservative propaganda stuff. Which, like, you can pretty much always tell if it's conservative propaganda if they're saying everything comes down to culture, nothing has anything to do with economics. Sam Harris never mentions economics ever.
Okay.
Sam Harris, because if Sam Harris mentioned economics, then he wouldn't be able to say, oh, it's something innate to Islam that makes this happen, or like it's something innate to white Christian culture that makes it superior and makes, torture acceptable or whatever. Like any of the, Sam Harris, he's a fraud who looks like a lot of other people's bad ideas.
Oh, I was reading all about him just like a couple of months ago. Yeah. Okay, now I remember. I was like, Sam Harris, who's? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Sam Harris. I mean, he has like a podcast. He interviews a bunch of people, but he's not.
Yeah, I remember I was reading all about him, and I said,
fraud, basically. Yeah, he's like Jordan Peterson. Jordan Peterson is one of those guys where he's got a very large vocabulary, so people don't recognize he's just saying chicks need to stay in the kitchen. The only reason the state exists is to help me get laid.
Yeah,
that's Jordan Peterson in 2 sentences, right? But he's talking very quickly with big words, so people get flummoxed or whatever by it. But
hey, that sounds like the neuro-ophthalmologist that I went to a year ago. Lots and lots of big words, nonstop. Got really mad when I asked him to explain one of those big words. Yeah, and it turned out that he missed the cause of what was going on with my eyes. Because I went to another neuro-ophthalmologist a few weeks ago, and he was like, "Oh yeah, it's this." I'm like, "Oh, that totally makes sense." And I tried something out. I was like, "Oh, it was totally that. Oh my God, he's right." And he barely said a word. He did not use big words except like once or twice, and then he explained what they meant. It was a very different experience. But yeah, okay. There's my comparison of my ophthalmologist to Jordan Peterson and Sam Harris. Same world.
Well, yeah, I mean, like the big words, they're tools, right? Like you're not just whipping them on the table like it was your dick. There's this thing that George Balanchine used to tell the dancers in the New York City Ballet because George Balanchine, the guy who did the choreography for the Nutcracker, like if anybody's ever seen a production of the Nutcracker, they've probably seen some variation on Balanchine's choreography. And he was a big boxing fan. And he said Carpentier, who was a big boxer in the 50s, was the most graceful and lyrical of all boxers. And Joe Frazier took him out in 1 round. Not everything's about looking pretty, right? Not everything's about seeming to be unnaturally graceful or erudite. Every once in a while, you just need to punch something.
Yeah. Right. So the guy with the big words used lots of big words that concluded with "it was a fluke." And this doctor, a year later, barely used any words and said, "Oh, it's this thing," and it was that thing. And I know that for a fact because I tested it. And I don't know what the big word is for whatever the real cause is, but anyways, there's my veiled eye problem story. Which has been resolved. Oh yeah, you were there. Wait, did you know that I went to the emergency room again?
Yeah, because it was right before you were coming to see me, I think.
This time, or do you mean like? Oh well, there's twice.
There was a time at the beginning of the pandemic where it was like an anxiety thing, and then there was the time right before you went to see me where it was your eye thing.
Yeah.
And then I think I don't know if you mentioned a third trip, but I know you mentioned like you figured out it was your medication that was making the words jump around.
Yes. So a couple of weeks ago, I was in the emergency room again because a similar thing happened with my eyes. Right. It was when I visited you in February, the thing with the eyes happened again. And that's when I called the eye doctor, and the doctor never called me back. The doctor that didn't bother calling me back was the one with the lots of big words. Who used big words to say it was a fluke. So
doctors in general, I mean, I don't know how much I should go into this. But I feel like a lot of people go into the medical profession for the wrong reasons.
Oh yeah.
At least from the encounters I've had with them, by and large, like it's like, wait, they got like this chip on their shoulder, Well,
Oh,
I
go
mean,
on.
I
Wait,
don't
go
know,
on.
there's a
I'm curious.
lot of medical professionals I have been to. They got this chip on their shoulder. They're not really listening to you. I mean, I had my doctor once. I had like I was pretty sure I had an ear infection. I go and this was when I was younger, granted, but he just keeps asking me like, "How are your grades?" Doesn't look at the ear. And he's like, "You're gonna be fine." And I'm just like, "Okay, you had one job. You had one fucking job, right?" I mean, I remember in Boston, I had this like weird skin thing on my back, and then the ex-pod guests convinced me to go to the doctor. And I showed him, the guy's just like, it's an ingrown hair, and he just gave me this look like, why the fuck did you just waste my time with this?
Uh-huh.
And it's like if I fucking knew what the thing on my back was, I'd be getting paid the big bucks like you are. Like, go fuck yourself.
Yeah, you're going there because you're concerned that it's like it could be a big deal. You don't know what an
I'm going there because I'm a lay person. If you're gonna be pissed that I'm a lay person, then suck a bag of dicks, right?
You know what's something else that doctors don't like? It's when you go to WebMD or not MD, WebMD or do Google. So like you look up the symptoms you have, and then you find like how this is you're dying, and it turns out to be an ingrown hair. Well, that's why you go to the experts.
I didn't even do that. I was just sort of like, this thing on my back looks pretty fucking weird. What the hell's going on here?
Yeah. No. I mean, the doctors get upset if you do that.
Oh, yeah. Like one of the most embarrassing experiences of my entire life, I think, was my mother, who is, she's wonderful in a lot of ways, but she, let's just say she's enthusiastic about homeopathy.
Okay.
There's some crunchy granola, and it talks to her when it rattles around in her head sometimes. But like, and so she gives me this giant printout of all these fucking like bullshit things that are in the health food store. Because you look at most of those like health supplements you get in a health food store, it's gonna be like a little bit of caffeine and ground up dried cow bone. It's gonna say desiccated cow bone on probably half the things. It's just
Ew.
Ground up cow bones, like maybe some vitamin B or something, and some caffeine.
Ew.
And so people think like, oh, I feel so much more energetic and better now that I'm on all these supplements. And it's like, no, you're just taking the equivalent of like 8 caffeine pills a day, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm not saying they're all like that, but it's not a regulated industry. Like, there's no regulation on nutritional supplements. They self-report basically, right? So anyway, long way to go. So she gets this packet. She sends me to the doctor, and she's like, can you ask him about if any of these would be good for you? And I show it to him, and he just looks so, I'm like, this I kind of get, because I was just sort of between a rock and a hard. Because if I didn't show it to him, my mother was going to never forgive me. If I did show it to him, he was going to be like, I went to school for 10 years. Why are you insulting me to my face? Right. And that's what happened. Was I showed it to him, and he's like, well, if you want that, there's a health food store downtown. If you want me, I'm in a doctor's office, basically. Which, I mean, that I think I can sympathize with. I just wish I hadn't been, because like I didn't believe in the supplement stuff. I mean, the supplement stuff, I started doing some research into doing an article on that when I was in college. That was one of the potentials for my like journalism capstone. Because like people presume that stuff, basically they have to do an audit in-house and then send reports to the government. The government never actually checks whether what they say is in those supplement pills is actually there. And there's that little like cross disclaimer on all of them, and that's the only thing that legally has to be there. And it basically just says there's no guarantee. Basically, they have to put on the bottle like this is not actually going to help your health, which 99% of it is not. It's just like a way to take money from old ladies, basically. No, I mean, I'm not even joking. Like it's.
I know.
You got the fucking like network. Oh yeah. It's like, I mean, there are actual nutritionists. I don't think they're running around handing these things out, but you have like people where they're, because you can't call yourself a nutritionist unless you went to school, but you can call yourself a nutrition consultant. You can call yourself all these things, and there's this network of guys, and they all refer the people back to the other charlatans in the network. And then they're just like, you know what? It's the Western world's got you down, and we're gonna fix that with vitamin pills. Lots and lots and lots of because like I told you, my mother had like a giant plastic tub worth of the bottles of those things that she used to carry around like an infant.
Wow. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna get a paid WebMD account, and I'm gonna advertise. I'm gonna print out business cards and call myself a medical consultant.
You know what that WebMD should do is they should like turn part of it into a dating thing, right? Because like matching on personality, I have had nothing but bad luck. Maybe if I like matched on symptoms, right?
And it hit me a couple of months ago to like, oh, you know what? I could date someone with issues as well. They'll understand.
Yeah, I mean, love is just a Camp David Accord between two people's issues.
Yeah, okay, there we go. All right, that's what I'm working on next.
Like, compatible symptoms are far more important, at least as, you know, speaking as somebody who's never actually made this work. I feel like that's a deeper attraction, honestly, than things that you would think are like selling points.
All right, we've strayed so far from this.
Well, I think this is like a relevant Bob Dylan line,
which is
you have to pay to get out of going through all these things twice.
You have to pay to get out of these things twice.
Going through all these things twice. So speaking of which, we don't have a Patreon, but if you just want to like slip cash in my pocket, if you see me on the street, that's like our Patreon now.
And if you see me in the street, feel free to just put your hands in my pockets. No need for money.
Yeah, pockets are hand money or hand jobs, right?
Yeah.
We started our own Patreon. It's called Cash, Grass, or Ass, and we're the only members on the website so far. and I think mostly I've just gotten grass.
Is there anything left from Bob Dylan and the movie that you want to say?
No. I think like there's an endless number of things to say about Bob Dylan, but I think we covered the ones that we're supposed to cover.
Okay. Then as you do the sign off, do you mind if I play Bob Dylan?
I mean, it's not whether I mind, it's whether the copyright Gestapo gets after us, but I'll keep talking over it so that it's a little more confusing for the content match thing. So this has been an episode of Anomaly Questionable Movies, featuring the 1967 movie Don't Look Back, directed by D.A. Pennebaker, featuring Joan Baez, Bob Dylan. Allen Ginsberg shows up there for a little bit. And yeah, so we watched it, we talked about it. Presumably you just listened to us talk about it. And I'm still Dan.
And I'm still Ron.
And we will see you on the internet sooner than later. Sooner than later.
Go your own way.
Okay, I got like a stupid fan theory to close out the episode now.
I'm sorry. I just
okay. So Frank Sinatra, you get his hands on a time machine, right? If anybody knew enough people in 1955, you get a time machine. It was Frank Sinatra. Goes forward in time. Here's that Fleetwood Mac song. Goes back, writes "My Way" as an answer response song.
Oh,
never mind that Frank Sinatra did not actually write "My Way." Just like give me this, you know.
I'll give you that. I like that. That's a whole that actually there's music history in a nutshell. 20th
You
century.
can go your own way. I did it my way.
Yeah. And then
well, okay, even crazier fan theory. He actually stole that from Burger King. Frank Sinatra, he went into the future, saw the Have It Your Way ads, was like, you know what? I didn't actually write this song, but I'm gonna go back, tell him to do it my way.
Yeah, all right.
Which is, I mean, it's also kind of funny because it's not actually his way, right? Because he didn't write the song, he didn't do it his way.
He didn't do it his way. And Burger King, there's really only so many options. You can't ask for it medium well, right? Well, it all comes medium well. Okay, but to wrap it up with Bob Dylan, what was the actual Bob Dylan song that I was?
Oh, you're gonna play "Rainy Day Women" number 12 and 35.
No, yeah, that I can't remember how to
Blonde on Blonde.
for.
No,
No,
you can't remember the plucking.
No, the one that I was confusing the Fleetwood Mac song with.
Oh, most likely you'll go your way and I'll go mine.
That's the one. All right. So you're still Dan, I'm still Ron, and this has been Anonymity Questionable Movies.
And most likely you'll hear us on the internet next week. So later.
Later, everyone. Take care.